So got it.
All right. Hello, hello, my friends. We are live here with Miss Yoshi from Healing Space Hypnosis. I'm really thrilled to be sharing this. I see that we are live and in action here. All right. There we go. Now we can see us both. And we have had so much synchronicity, so much just like divine connection and flow happening today that I'm thrilled to be here. Yoshi reached out to me asking some very specific questions about some life experiences that I had around sexual traumas and how I am healing them and how I'm experiencing and existing in life through my own healing and all that stuff. And so we actually just did a brief through the questions, and I said, hey, let's go ahead and go live now and see what comes up and see who we can serve and how we can support and share now in this moment. And so here we are, Yoshi. I'm going to hand it over to you to ask me the questions that we'll say that we briefed on to go through before, but now that we're prepped and ready, I'm really excited to revisit this conversation with you and see where it takes us.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sitara. It's so amazing to see you. And for the second time today. Yeah, I got, from the first time, I got so much energy and inspiration from you. And again, like my heart is so fulfilled. Okay, so let's get to the question. Sitara, thank you.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Okay, thank you. So how is your emotional state in general? Like basically, how are you feeling generally?
Yes. So my emotional state in general, I would say rating it on an 8 to 10 sort of thing. I know that we touched in on this, so I'm going to revisit some of those key points, is that I realize how much we're all facing today. I realize how much I'm facing as far as feeling the collective, as far as how much I'm feeling within myself, how much I'm feeling even within my communities and new environment. Overall, I feel quite strong in being able to connect with my internal world, my internal center. And in the moments that I feel like I am getting swayed to or from that space, that center, I basically just come back home into myself. And I do that through breathing, centering, grounding, creating space, even if it's just a few moments here or there. Sometimes I like to put my hands together, just simply like this, to remember the connection here. And so even now, just allowing myself to feel that centeredness, to feel that connection here with you and whoever it is that is watching us live and on the replay. Feeling that grounded, anchored presence, so that even as we connect in with these questions today, because I do know that we're going to touch on some pretty touchy subjects, that every single time we can come back to, that breath, that center, that space. And so in general, how I'm feeling, how am I emotionally? I'm feeling quite grounded, quite clear, challenged to stay present, but also so busy that I'm also finding it quite easy to also simultaneously stay in the present moment. So it's a beautiful balance and dance to watch.
Yeah, thank you very much. Oh, definitely. Yes. Yeah, I feel that too. Time. And the question 2 is, tell me what you are dealing with emotionally in your daily life.
So what I'm dealing with emotionally in my daily life, it's been such a huge transition to go from living in Bali, experiencing the pandemic through Bali, and then moving to Dubai and experiencing life in Dubai. Honestly, it's like the contrast of the two, like being in the jungle, of experiencing the jungle, and then also just moving straight into the middle of a city, and not just any city, but one of the fastest growing modern cities in the world right now. Also working in developing some new projects with some colleagues that are integrated with crypto and NFTs. And so staying on the leading edge of technology, and where there is big opportunities and where there are big investments and lots of money, there's also a lot of dangers and scams and people trying to get their hands on it that don't always have the greatest of intentions. So it's been a very, I will say, a deeply humbling yet honoring experience that Spirit has felt that this is the best place for me to be and the best place for me to serve in this way. And so, yeah, I'm feeling alive, challenged, and sometimes sleep deprived, off schedule. I feel like I'm living in 3 different time zones. I really do feel that I have an exceptionally full plate. And in those times where I feel overwhelmed or off my center, like I said, I come back to the breath. I come back to creating space. I come back to my own heart. I come back to the wholeness that is my own inner being. And yeah, it's just taking everything one step at a time. I don't really have a plan right now. I'm just flying by the intuitive seat of my pants and letting it all just, letting life move me and letting the experience of graciousness also move through in powerful ways, yet not always knowing where it's leading. So yeah, a lot coming through lately.
I know. So this interview happened spontaneously today, right? And I'm in Toronto and you are in Dubai, and it's so amazing that you made time for me. Thank you so much.
When it feels aligned, it feels aligned. And I know that we just had this brief of going through these questions and, wasn't sure if we'd be able to connect again to make it happen. And I was sitting here and it was just like this inspiration to keep sharing and to go live was really, really strong within me. And so that's what I mean by following every intuitive ping and following every intuitive connection. It's like, okay, this makes sense. This makes sense. Keep saying yes, keep going. And so that's how I choose to live every moment. So yeah, I trust that the path has been cleared for your morning and for my evening to drop in, because it's clear that there's some really important information that needs to be shared.
Yeah, so after our first meet, I went to praying. and this is second time to be able to connect with you. So it's amazing.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, I believe in the power of prayer. Undoubtedly so, with full conviction. I absolutely believe in the power of prayer. Truly.
Oh, thank you so much for your big, big heart. I really appreciate it.
Yes, of course.
Okay, and the next question is, what a scale of 1 to 10, how much does your trauma impact your daily life?
Whew. Yeah, this one is a 10 out of 10. And as I mentioned, it's like the key there is affect. How does it affect? It's like, it affects me positively, and I don't necessarily want to say negatively every day, but it does keep me on alert. It does keep me looking out and paying attention, because when we talk about a woman who has experienced sexual trauma, it's like there's a device in, let's say it's like this. If a child is attacked by a dog when they are young, there's a trauma that stays in their body, in their memory bank, that tells them to be aware of dogs, to be cautious around dogs. So when a woman is attacked by a man, or when a woman is attacked by even someone that they love, a relative, this, that, or the other, we are taught there's a device inside of our head that keeps us safe, that is saying, okay, be aware, be wary of men. And so in that space, it's a 10 out of 10. And especially, as I mentioned, being in Dubai, this is a place where there is a lot of money, there are a lot of opportunities, there are a lot of powerful people, there are a lot of powerful men, and there is a lot of unresolved sexual trauma that I can see around every single corner. And so for myself, in knowing how to keep myself safe, in knowing how to keep myself grounded, in knowing how to keep myself present, in holding myself and carrying myself with strength and presence and power and awareness. It is a 10 out of 10 that in the environment that I am in, I am aware of the experiences that I have had with men. I am aware of the experience that I have had that have created deep trauma. And I'm also aware that that trauma and the integration, the healing of that trauma has built a really powerful conviction within me that is also open to receiving the conversation and connections with men that I can feel also by intuitive connection and by my own psychic read, is that I can feel the intention of men that are around me that have my highest intention at heart and that have my best intention at heart. And so my prayer today, I actually have these prayers written in my journal that's sitting right next to me, is please surround me with people, men and women, that have my highest intention at heart, because I know what kind of woman I am. I know the level of my own integrity, and I don't want to have to keep, searching, scanning. It's like, just surround me with the people that have my intention at heart. Surround me with the people that know what my gifts are, what my capacity is to help others heal, and that I can continue to do that without having to feel scared or unsafe. And so the lessons that I have learned that have me not operating in naivety, because I think a lot of the trauma and the re-traumatization that I experience happened from blind spots and naivety, and being able to come and to experience life from a very empowered place of the integration of all these experiences and wounds gives me, I just feel like, so much more connection to myself and connection to how I exist in this world in a way that feels safe and balanced and nurtured and very much so guided.
Yeah, definitely. For me, it's all about the women's healing from the trauma as well. So definitely I can relate to that. Thank you. And next question is this always the same, or some situations or days worse than others?
I would say that, some days are better than others. And I started my healing journey when I was in my early 20s. But this particular healing journey started for me in my mid-20s. I actually put a cap on it. My first sexual trauma happened when I was 14. And it was in a situation where I had been drinking. I was not in an empowered place. I was 14. I was, too young to even really know what was going on. And I was picked up off of a kitchen floor. I had passed out. I was picked up off of a kitchen floor. And that experience was, let's say, how I lost my virginity. So that experience left a extremely deep imprint on me. And I had not ever brought it up to a single person before I was 26. I had not mentioned PEEP to anyone, not even a best friend, not even a sister, not even anybody. I really kept it completely under wraps. And so in the time that I was 26 and am now 27, I'm not 27, it's been 7 years, I'm 33. I have had so many days where I have spent crying on my pillow. I have had so many days where I am like deep in my own emotions, deep in my own fears, having extreme triggers come up where I have attracted mirrors or attracted people, specifically men in my world. Like when I start to feel masculine force coming towards me, I start flaring. I start having this reaction where it's like, no. And I find that I can be a little bit more gentle, a little bit more compassionate, a little bit more graceful as the way that I respond to it now. But I also know that I have come a really, really, really long way in my own healing. I've come a really long way in my own presence and power of how I hold myself. And all of that has really come through a lot of dedicated and intentional focus and willingness to face the tough emotions as they come up. I don't believe that we are capable of healing these sorts of traumatic experiences and these sorts of traumatic imprints just in a single night or in a single evening. I believe these imprints really require spaciousness and patience to unfold and uncover. And so of course there are days that are better than others. And, you know, there are days when I'm able to be around sisters and I'm unthreatened and I don't have to play this strange dynamic that shows up when men and women are in just an environment together. And it's all trial and error. It's all moving through things with effortless grace and allowing every single day to just deliver what it delivers to me. And also allowing myself to be patient as the triggers come up, be patient with myself. I have a wise inner woman inside of me, and I have integrated so many wounded younger adolescent parts of myself. And so when those wounded parts start acting up, really because they want attention, I take a pause and I give them attention. I ask, you know, what am I needing in this moment? What part of my little girl self is calling for attention? How deeply can I love myself right now? And yeah, it's really been a powerful experience to just settle into that.
Yeah. Yeah, I work with women who had sexual abuse and violence and traumas. And I found that those sexual abuse really hurt deeply in so many different ways. That's what I found. It's, yeah, all the abuse
destroys lives.
Does. Yeah. And
yes.
Yeah, create like lots of negative emotions and deep inside of a subconscious mind.
Yeah, I agree. I love your question. It's like, how does your trauma affect? Nobody's asked me that. It's like, how does it affect you every day? It affects me every single day. It affects how I move through the world. It affects who I talk to. It affects who I don't talk to. It affects who I have my guard up with. It affects who I don't have my guard up with. It affects every single thing about how I move through this world. There's no doubt in my heart also that these experiences, and especially the ones that happen at a young age, I've always seen myself as a little girl where I've always known I was going to end up inside skyscrapers. So when I got the call to Dubai, like for me, it was right on time, right on schedule. I've always known this about myself, and I've always known that I would be in big boardrooms or big conversations with large global conversations being had. I've always known this for myself when I was a little girl.
That's amazing.
And the strength and the internal conviction that overcoming these experiences have gifted me are unwavering and help me to understand why they occurred. And for me, I heal very quickly when I understand why. And so in that, for me, in understanding why they have occurred, it's actually helped me to reconcile and heal and integrate. And I believe that why is for the strength that I possess now. I am very willing to tell very powerful people no. I'm very willing to hold my boundaries. I'm unwavering when things are outside of my integrity, where it's a no for me, it's a no. And I would not have learned that without having that. I think it's also the intensity of the trauma. there's a lot of gray areas around sexual harassment, and there's a lot of gray areas around consent. And there's a lot of gray areas of like, did you willingly let this person into your life and into your heart and into your house, and they destroyed what was there? It's like, okay, well, there's a part of it where it's like, there was a certain amount of consent that was playing out, but then there's also a certain amount of like being blinded by another person's darkness in which they want to take from you, and they have an empty hole inside of themselves that they're trying to fill, and it ends up being a really toxic sort of power dynamic. By having played these patterns out for me in younger years and early life, I feel that it has given me a strength and conviction and an understanding that where I'm at now and where I am headed, it's unwavering. I'm unwavering in my conviction. I'm unwavering in my understanding of why I'm here. I'm unwavering in what I will and will not tolerate. And so allowing that to stay open and allowing that to stay clear is, it is a really strong point in the way that I teach and in the way that I show up in the world. And so I do feel, and I do believe that I am in a very strong and in a very powerful place within myself. And it's not to say that that's perfect. I definitely still have those moments where I feel very small, or I feel that somebody is trying to overpower me. And I'm continuing to learn, especially in this field of Dubai, and especially in this, like, this is a completely different environment. This is like advanced level environment of how do you maneuver and how do you move through things, especially as a spiritual leader, as a spiritual teacher. I haven't met another psychic here. I've started to finally meet some earth people and some people that sing the prayers of Mama Gaia and feel her heartbeat in their heart, but it is few and far between in this environment. And so to sing those songs and to sing those songs with conviction inside of my own heart it's really challenging me to stay in clear alignment with my own integrity and who I am. And I really believe that coming out of the hole of that kind of trauma and coming out of the hole of that kind of addiction and that kind of pain, it fortifies a different sort of strength within me that I don't necessarily see in other people that haven't had to go through that kind of pain.
Mm-hmm. So like, this is so amazing that we are having this YouTube live right now, because I encounter so many the women who had deep trauma from sexual abuse, rape and human trafficking, and they are still so hurt by that, and they're almost living with trauma every moment of their life. So there's so many people, so many women that we can help and we can heal.
Yes.
Yeah.
And the thing about it is that it stays such a dark secret. It stays such a dark secret because talking about sexuality is taboo, or talking about your trauma, it's like nobody wants to hear it. But the thing is, we want to hear it. Yes. Women, other women, we need to hear it from each other. Yes. We need to hear each other's stories. We need to hear each other's pain. We need to know that we are not alone in our suffering, and we are not alone in our pain, and we are not alone in our trauma, and that we are not alone in the feelings that we are being silenced. And we need to know that we are not alone in so many ways and on so many platforms. I will tell you that the single most powerful experience that I have had with other women, it was in Bali, and it was in a we have confidentiality, so I'm not going to go into a lot of detail with it, but I do feel that I need to share this. It was in a Dragon Shakti womb activation, which love the name, but it's a breath work session. It was a breath work portal with 10 women. And we had all shared our intention of why we were there. We all were on yoga mats with our heads in the center of a beautiful altar. And the woman who was facilitating led us through the instructions, that sort of thing. And we breathed, and we were able to breathe with simple movements of our pelvis. So you move your pelvis a little bit and you breathe simultaneously. And we were in a space where we were safe. We were held. There were only women there. And we also were able to scream and be as loud as we wanted, and to be in that space and to hear these other sisters screaming the pain that I knew in the depths of my soul, screaming the pain of knowing what it feels like to be pinned down and to be held against your consent, to have that pain like mirrored through the screen, the horrifying screams of your sisters, but also know that you know that pain. And so for me, because I had already cried those tears and because I had already integrated a lot of that, I felt that I was able to be in that space and encourage them to go deeper. I felt that I was there and I was feeling it, but I also already knew because I'd already gotten to the other side. So when I was there and I was hearing it with them, I continued breathing. I continued having my own experience. And part of it was also saying, please breathe into your light. Please breathe into your soul. Please breathe into the depths of what this pain is so that you can feel it once and for all. Because once you feel that pain, it is gone. But when it is suppressed and it is oppressed and it is pushed down and it is just held in the subconscious mind, it rules everything. It rules who you attract. It rules who you're magnetizing. It rules so many things that actually end up attracting the trauma again and again and again. And what I've noticed in myself is that when I experience like magnets or that kind of trigger coming up, I notice that the trigger is bringing to me a small portion of what I can integrate and what I can integrate at that time. And that small portion, Bill, it just brings such a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful strength and conviction of what can open up. And in that way, like the healing that the divine brings to us step by step by step, as we are willing to face it. Because the thing is, you will recreate and you will call in the same experience over and over again. You'll call in the same toxicity if you are not conscious to it and if you are not actively paying attention to letting it out. And that, like, I can't even tell you, I've had so many experiences where being in conversation with women who have had similar experiences, because it doesn't matter what happened. It doesn't matter if you were pinned down. I've experienced that. It doesn't matter if you were unconscious and drunk. I've experienced that. It doesn't matter if you were coerced or convinced or drugged or whatever it is. And unfortunately, I've experienced them all. It didn't happen once or twice. It continued to happen because of my unconscious wounding and my self-medicating through drugs and alcohol that continued to put me in these situations. And so what I have learned is that when the pain inside is released and integrated and set free, it stops being a magnet. It stops calling in these things. It's like attracts like. So if that is there, it's happening over and over so that we as the experiencer, and I don't want to say we as victims, because I don't celebrate victim mentality by any means, but there is a way to be able to say, well, we are experiencing this and it is up to us to be the ones to stop repeating the cycle of what is being experienced. And it comes through letting go of the grudge, because I have been a man eater. I have been a man hater. I have been a let's blame the men champion as well, because every single step of my trauma and every single step of my recovery and every single step of my healing, a new layer of projections have come up. A new layer of animosity has come up. A new layer of resentments have come up. And I'm so deeply grateful for the universe and source and myself for being able to receive the brothers who have shown up in my life that have been capable of holding space for that healing, because there comes a time where we have to step out of the safety of a woman's circle and actually integrate the healing with our brothers so that we can unify and heal together, because it is so important for them to know what we are experiencing and the conversations we are having without their presence, so that they also know how to show up for the awakening of the divine feminine inside of themselves and with their sisters and mothers and daughters and friends, all of it. It's like there is a unification. I do believe that there is a separation and a unification that comes together, that women need to hear our own voices and to be felt by each other without the presence of a man trying to step in or mansplain or try to defend or try to, you know, whatever it is that happens. Because when a woman is talking about this kind of experience and a man comes in and tries to interject what their thoughts or their opinions or their beliefs are without actually truly trying to listen, it recreates trauma. And so until a woman is able to kind of stand there and see it, and this is something that for me, in full honesty, it still triggers me. When I get mansplained to, and I can tell that a man isn't hearing what I have to say or doesn't, and it's not even on this topic, in any topic, it's just not, it's not serving. And so I find that being in that space for a woman, especially if she's in the beginning of her healing around this, it has to be with sisters. It has to be with women. It has to be with female practitioners. It has to be with women that we know are not trying to coerce or take things from us. And yeah, I could go on and on around like sexuality healing and some of the shadow side of Tantra that I saw in Bali. And it's like, we have to be aware of how to intuitively navigate predators and people that are here as allies to help serve us. Because when those wounds are there, we will magnetize predators. And the naivety is so important to get a grip on, to be able to actually reconcile and truly heal, to stop reinforcing the beliefs that are recreating the trauma anyway.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, I like to be that, you know, the somebody, the beginning. I like to help women to begin to heal. Like I want to be that the step one.
Yes.
Women. Yes.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
Step one's a big step. Step one is not a small step. That's like when it's almost like the step one is almost the most confronting, because you're starting to say, I'm willing to face this. I'm willing to deal with this. And it's the same as like being in an addiction and finally saying, okay, I have a problem. I need help. I need to step out of this. It's not easy to do. That first step is not an easy step to take. So for you wanting to be in that first step world, like I commend you and hold that intention on highest regards, because it is not for the faint of heart. So thank you.
All about healing.
Yes.
And next question, how do you feel on your best days? How do you feel on your best days?
On the best days, I feel inspirational. On my best days, I feel that I emanate. On the best days, I feel that my presence heals the hearts of those around me. On my best days, I feel that I am a very good listener. On my best days, I feel very present and centered, and just clear. On my best days, what I would say is that I feel most willing to serve. I feel most willing to serve every person that's in front of me in that moment. I feel most willing to tip more. I feel most willing to offer more compliments. I feel more willing to just beam the grace of love that I have in my heart. And on those best days, it's like I'm feeling my most gentle, yet simultaneously my most powerful, because I know the ripple effect of my centered and grounded and present and beautiful heart. And so it's such a treasure and such a beauty, such a gift to be able to share that openness and willingness in such powerful ways.
Oh, you are the gift. So.
Thank you.
I'm just listening to you speak on this topic. It's just like I'm going through the releasing as well. Like,
oh, well, I send that prayer to everyone who listens as well. It's like, let the shield fall away, let the guard fall away. I mean, the amount of times that I have run full speed ahead with my head first into my own walls and destroyed my own opportunities and blocked myself and shot myself in the foot on some of my worst days and harmed those around me that didn't deserve to be harmed, and simultaneously knowing that they called whatever the experience was in for themselves as well. I don't even necessarily want to call it healing. It's the resurrection of the power within that is available for all of us. And we're all walking ourselves home. We're all walking each other home. And those that we choose to link arms with, I really think is the most important decision that we can make in our lives. Mm-hmm. It's those that we choose to have closest to us, really, I think, makes the biggest difference in our world and in our life.
Mm-hmm. So you're going to go beyond the healing now. Amazing.
Exactly.
And so what is your current strategy to deal with the traumas?
Yeah, the current strategy, this is why I feel like we're having so many synchronicities today, because in the last week or so, I felt a little bit like, woo, like I kind of got off my center. I let the whirlwinds of Dubai just kind of pick me and take me. And it's been nice, but I got a little sleep deprived because this is a night city. And so today I sat and I focused in meditation. I cleared my field. I really was like, okay, I know that I'm here to do really important things. I know that I'm feeling a little off my own center. I really want to reconnect. And as I was in that meditation, as I was being led, as I was clearing out my own wings, as I was really just going through all like a full cleansing, like a full defragmenting, I was given by an angel that's a guardian of mine. I was given this blueprint of this golden womb. And it wasn't even a blueprint. I was given almost like a talisman of a womb that they put into my hands. And as they put into my hands, showed me how to integrate it into my own body, into my own energetic field. And as it was integrated into my own energetic field, I could see how the initiation of that work or of that intention and of that information that they're bringing to me is not only for me and is a marker, almost like a reward or a trophy of the work that I've done in clarifying my womb, of purifying my womb, of purifying my own sexual energy and holding it so very clear and intentional that I felt that I was given this as a gift and also as an opportunity to serve more and to serve at a higher level, that instead of focusing on the pain of the trauma, as I do have a course, it's called Release and Rise, which is focusing on the trauma, going through the memories, going through these experiences, which I do believe are very beneficial, because it was actually just after I led that course was when I started speaking light language and when I started channeling at a higher level myself. And so this golden womb, as it came to me, I do feel called to share. So as that came to me, Spirit showed me like, have a pen and paper next to you. And as that's happening, I'm like channeling the guidance for the course and knowing that there's an opportunity here for me to not just help myself, but to help many. And so when it's like, what is my strategy? My strategy for my healing is that I'm stronger when I'm serving. My strategy for my healing is that if I'm holding a container and I'm holding space and I'm leading 5 people or 10 people or 100 people or 1,000 people through a guided channeled experience, I'm also receiving the mirrors of the healing that they need for themselves, because as a channel, it then comes through me. That reflection comes through me and I integrate and I heal as it's moving through. And so right now, my strategy is to be able to bring the teachings of the golden womb as they're being channeled through me to a larger group of people so that they can experience their healing through the channel as well. And all in all, it makes all of us stronger. And then in the day-to-day, one of my favorite strategies is EF tapping. So this, as we do, that has been wildly helpful. I mean, like that in and of itself is a miracle. And breath work as well. Breath work, wildly transformative, super helpful to go into some of those memories and trauma imprints as well. And then I do believe in the responsible use of plant medicines and ceremonial use of different types of psychedelics that will help us to open into that field inside of our heart, that help us to release the pain and trauma that has been there. And so allowing that momentum to take place inside of our hearts, and allowing that momentum to take place inside of ourselves by the ways that we are feeling called. And when I talk about plant medicines, or I talk about psychedelics, one of my rules with it is, and as I mentioned before, using them as a party favor in a party environment when I was self-medicating and in my own darkness is actually what started pulling me out of it. It's actually what started to begin this path of healing for me, because of how revealing they are to our own inner world. And I think there's been a lot of propaganda to make a lot of people believe that they're unsafe or they're dangerous. But I believe that is to keep us from being able to access this wisdom within ourselves, because my experience has been that it opens us up to be able to access the wisdom within ourselves, including the healing that is required for us to be living in our strongest potential. And so there's a safe and nurturing way and a responsible way to explore in these worlds that they open up within us, that is extremely powerful and extremely supportive. So, and then community. Nobody is expected to experience these things alone. Nobody is expected to have to go into the depths of your deepest and hardest memories, your hardest life experiences alone. Get a practitioner that's going to help you. Get a hypnotherapy, EF tapping, breath work, ceremonial shamans, people that are able to help you through this, and use your discernment. Do not just go with anybody. In the same way you would pick a partner, in the same way you would pick a business partner, in the same way, find somebody that your heart and soul resonates with, because the potential for being re-traumatized when you're with somebody that's not a right fit is really high. And the only person who is responsible for doing that due diligence is you. We are each individually responsible for doing the due diligence of who we choose to work with and who we choose to open ourselves up to. So, yes, that's my supportive commentary on all of that. We have to hold the power in our own hands. We have to hold the responsibility in our own hands. And so through all of that, we're just held in so much more grace and stability by staying in our center. So yeah, that's my answer.
Yeah, amazing. That was like a list. Yeah, when I heard your golden womb, I just received so much energy from you, like a goosebumps, the vibration. So, between Canada and
yes, beautiful. I love it, because like I said, it came through me for today. And literally within the next half hour, it was start talking about it, start talking to your team, start creating the images, start creating the checkout page. Honestly, it was so clear that it needed to start happening immediately. And for me to start talking about it immediately. And then with the lifestyle that's going on in Dubai, it's okay, when am I going to have time to have this all come through? When is it going to all these things? And then I just asked for such a clear channel. I said, protect the space, protect the time that I need to be able to create it, protect the time that I need to be able to birth it, protect the space completely, protect me completely, so that I can be a clear channel to make sure that the guidance that's coming through is coming through crystal clear, with pure intention, with pure heart-centered focus, and knowing that that all things are aligned. And if it's aligned and it's not coming from my ego, spirit takes it and runs with it and distributes it in a way that I don't even necessarily need to do anything other than to follow each intuitive nudge. Which even getting on this call with you tonight was a very strong synchronized intuitive nudge that said, keep going. So just following every step.
Absolutely. And next question is, beyond you and your family, why is it important that you overcome the traumas?
Yeah, I love that you bring the question of my family into this, because As I mentioned, this started for me when I was 14, and I was clearly, I was still living with my parents. And it was something that, like I said, I hid, and I feel that I hid very well, but what I didn't hide very well was the pain that I was suffering. And I didn't hide the addictions very well. I started drinking heavily when I was 14, and that carried on with me through my adolescence and into my early 20s. I'm now almost 3.5 years sober, and it's my 4th attempt at sobriety. So even that was not an easy thing to move through, because I actually don't believe that addiction or the substance is the problem. I believe that it's the unintegrated wound that is the problem. So you can take the beer out of the alcoholic's hand, but if you don't actually heal the core wound as to why they started drinking in the first place, it's the root cause. If you don't start to heal that, you can't get very far with the alcoholic staying true to their intention to stay sober. And so I've also seen actually quite a few alcoholics or addicts that have been able to maybe stay away from the substance, but they still hold the frequency of addiction. They still hold the frequency of, I'm an alcoholic, I'm an alcoholic, I'm an alcoholic, I'm an alcoholic. And that in and of itself becomes a repetitive sort of trauma that isn't fully empowering. Sobriety is empowering for sure, but what we're talking about is divine sovereignty. We're talking about activating divine genomes. We're talking about activating such a powerful truth inside of ourselves that it is absolutely unwavering in how we are able to see ourselves clearly. And so for me, when I was in these addictions, and in the United States, there's a lot of permission for complete absence. There's a lot of permission for complete denial. There's a lot of permission for numbing. There's a lot of codependence around it. It's like when I started to actually sober up, my friends were projecting so much stuff on me, saying that I thought I was better than them. And I'm like, I'm just saving myself. I'm just pulling myself out of the mud, the muck, the tar that we are all swimming in because of our own unresolved trauma. And so I started healing myself, and I had to start facing that. And of course, my friend circle changes, the people that I was around all changed, but I knew that my relationship with myself was the most important. And I had to break really strong bonds of codependency, and I had to break really strong bonds of abuse, and I had to break really strong bonds of trauma. And I had to start setting very clear boundaries that included with my family, that included with partners, that included with friends. It included so many different things. And so I really had to get clear on all of that for myself. And my family has been really, really supportive. Some of them have been really supportive to getting rid of the booze, and some of them were sad that I was no longer a drinking buddy, to be honest. But all in all, I feel that my family, they can feel when I'm thriving, and they can feel when I'm not. And so I think one of the greatest gifts that I can even give my family is, one, be able to be transparent and honest with as much as they can handle. And I have sharing this conversation with my father and letting him know what happened when I was living under his roof. And with one of the occurrences, it was somebody that he knew and somebody that was a friend of my sister's. And so there was, some deeper things that I think they had to face, especially with knowing what they didn't know, and some of how the experiences were unfolding. I don't know if I'm saying this as clearly as I can, but I'll say that once I started being more honest about the experiences that I had, I also had to know that they were going to go through their own experience of seeing what happened and how they were interacting with it as well. So, there were a lot of layers of things that had to come up to be revealed. And even then I've only really shared with my family the things that I have felt that were important for them to know. And part of it is that I wrote a book, or that I'm going to be talking about this, or that I'm releasing a program called Release and Rise. And so I'm like, if I'm going to be talking about it on social media, and if I feel that I'm going to be able to help other women, I also need to have those hard conversations with my family to just let them know that, you know, I don't want them to be scrolling social media and be like, what? You know, that happened and we had no idea. I want them to know from me. So there have been a lot of hard conversations that have needed to be had. And I said, when I heal, I feel that my family heals. And for some of us, we need to take responsibility for the ways in which we hurt people. And we need to take responsibilities for the ways in which we were not paying attention. And we need to take responsibilities for some of the things that we said when we didn't know what was truly going on. And so I do still feel that there is some healing there for me to have with my family in association with that. And there's probably some things that were going on with them that I had no idea about as well. Yeah. But this felt like a big interpersonal secret that I didn't want to share with them, also because I didn't want to hurt them. I didn't want them to feel the pain. I didn't want them to know. And so I carried it for myself. And the more that I share with them, the more that I feel more liberated in my intention and more respected from them and by them. And that the feeling is very much mutual when we've been able to work through it and move past it. But, yeah, it hasn't so much been easy the entire time.
Yeah, that is a lot. Yeah. However, you know, healing happens from us, right? From individually, and then it will heal like your family. Definitely. Yeah. And, you know, I'm an NLP and a hypnosis practitioner. And I never thought that limiting beliefs is actually a frequency. I never thought of that. And I'm a Reiki master as well. And I almost like, I shouldn't know the energy, but it is energy, isn't that? Like, oh.
It all is. Every belief we have is energy. Every thought we have is a current. When I talk about being a psychic, the way that I tell people what I do is I say that I translate energetic frequency into language. So I read energy. That means everything is an energy. All of our emotions are a current. All of our emotions are a frequency. Our soul is a current. Our everything is that. And until we learn how to see energy and see this world as an energetic experience, trauma leaves an imprint, as we know, on our cellular memory. Well, the cells are holding on to that. Now, I've done some healing with some women that have had endometriosis and had a period in over 6 months. And after we've done a womb healing or a womb activation, they started their cycle. They started to actually bleed and feel like this healing that happened through them. And this is just from teaching them very simple energetic tips of how to connect with your womb space consciously. And I just did a very tiny video, the last video that I posted on YouTube today. I'm wearing the same outfit, so go find that one. But it is about the golden womb. And those are the same techniques that I used in the experience that I'm sharing about. So I'm not like, by no means do I feel any of this information needs to be held behind closed doors. And even with the golden womb activation, like I'm going to be channeling it, and it is going to be in a closed container. And so allowing that to just move through in a really beautiful way and allow it to move through very effortlessly. But also the reason that it's in a closed container is because I know that if I was receiving this guidance and this awareness at the beginning of my journey, I wouldn't have been able to handle it. And so I trust that spirit brings me the people that are ready for it. And because when you start facing it, like I said, or I didn't say it in this one, but I got in a car accident in my mid-20s because I was starting to confront these experiences. I got my degree in psychology, and I never once had to talk about the sexual traumas. I instead of getting a master's in counseling, because there were too many rules, I ended up going to a psychic development training program. And through that psychic development training program, I ended up learning that the psychic tools are very, very strong. And one psychic reading could be worth, I'm just estimating, 5 years of talk therapy. And so when I started doing the psychic work, I was in that program for another 2 years. I never once had to bring any of this up. That's how deep it was stored in my subconscious. And so when I started finding my way to plant medicines and different psychedelic healing ceremonies, that was the one thing that actually got under my egoic defense mechanisms and started to show me that these were things that I needed to start dealing with. Well, what happened was the old triggers came back and I started drinking again. And I had already been, I think, 7 months sober at that point. I started drinking again, and I ended up finding myself drunk in Virginia City, which is close to my hometown, Reno. I was with my family. I came back, I had drank a bit more, and then I ended up driving, not very far, but far enough that I ended up driving over a curb. And when I drove over a curb, I hit my face on the steering wheel and I broke my nose. I had to get surgery on my nose. It was a whole fiasco. But when I was under anesthesia, I remembered being with my angels, and my angels were there with me, and they showed me that I was off track, that I was not in alignment. I was not doing what I was called there to do. And I was called here to do this work, to serve. And simultaneously, the unintegrated emotions and the trauma that was stored through this like safety deposit box of trauma that was buried so deep that when it started coming up, my emotional capacity still was limited to be able to face the reality of what was controlling the undercurrents of my subconscious. And so I had to start facing it. I had to really find within myself the wisdom, my grandmother wisdom, my future self that has already overcome this, maybe even parts of myself now that have held my hand through each and every single one of those experiences. But it was so confronting. It was so hard to see. It was so like painful to witness, and so painful to accept that like I was blasted, yet simultaneously it had to come up and it had to come through and it had to be reconciled, which is why I commend you for being at the first part of that. Because that first step out, it's like all of the trauma is still there. All of it is still there. That first step, the entire freaking filing cabinet is still there. And the beautiful thing is that our conscious mind only lets us take out each file as we're ready to. You won't be able to. And that's even the thing, is that some of these transmissions, like if somebody's at the beginning of their journey and they're not able to handle actually listening to a full transmission of something that I channel through, they'll fall asleep. You'll go unconscious. You'll literally just fall asleep. That's how our egoic mind protects us. So when you go unconscious, or when you fall asleep, or when you're in hypnosis and you fall asleep, or when you're in breath work and you fall asleep, or when you just know that you've gone past the emotional capacity and your conscious awareness's ability to be able to actually face what's coming up. And so you just do it again. And so I even say that with my 7 weeks to embody your higher self course. If you fall asleep, or if you zone out, or you can't pay attention, or you can't sit still, listen to it until you can listen to the whole thing all the way through, sitting in a lotus position and completely present, because that's when you know that you've received the full dose of the medicine that's there to serve you. And until you have been able to sit through the entire channeled hour, which isn't very long, and trust me, it's like a very expansive, multidimensional journey. You will not get bored. But when you're able to sit through the pain and the distractions, and you're able to acknowledge what's there and available for you, you're able to see the power and the potential of what you have to center and heal yourself. And baby steps: be forgiving, be compassionate, be nurturing, be loving, all of it, baby steps, every single step of the way.
Yeah, definitely. We keep traumas deep inside our subconscious mind. But I found the sexual trauma is the deeper, like almost like deepest. That's how
I agree. I completely agree. Yeah. I unfortunately also experienced physical abuse when I was younger. As I mentioned, the first time I went to see a counselor, I was 6 years old. So I started learning like adult emotional communication and I language at a very young age. And I believe that happened for me because of the life path that I'm destined to embody. And some of that life path that I'm destined to embody is to teach people about their own emotional intelligence. And so I have experienced physical abuse. I have experienced physical assault. I have healed through those things. And those are hard. That's what kept me healing from finding my healing path at the age of 21 to about 25 or 26. I had 5 years of dedicated healing required before I had the emotional capacity to even handle the rape experiences. Although I knew they were there the whole time, but I wasn't able, I didn't have, and what I mean by emotional capacity, it's like having the emotional maturity to be able to, because the inner wounding, and especially if you're wounded, I'll use myself and my story since we're talking about this. I was wounded pretty badly as a child. I was then wounded repeatedly, continuously, because I was in an environment that didn't help support the growth of my emotional development, but also I was. Because when trauma happens, there's a split. So part of you goes and part of you is traumatized. So there's a part of you that freezes in that moment of time, which is why I don't believe that time is only linear. It is and it isn't. There's a part of us that gets frozen in that point in time. I even have on YouTube a free meditation that's called Shifting Memories from the Past. Shifting memories from the past, I have done at every live event, at every retreat, in every course, in every single way, because I do believe that we are able to go back. We're not able to change the event, but we're able to change how we experience the event, how we communicate to the person that created the harm, how we're able to go into those things. But when that experience of trauma happens, there's a part of us that gets frozen, and there's a part of us that goes on through survival. So part of us still continues to develop emotionally. Part of us doesn't. Part of us is stunted. And this is where you'll see, I had a grown man mock me the other day. Mock me. The whole meh, 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 like that. And I'm like, is this happening? This is happening. That's his wounded 8-year-old self, or pick an age, that is stuck in that moment of time, that hasn't evolved, that hasn't caught up, that hasn't been integrated with the wise version of his own grandfather, infinite intelligence. So there's a part of our consciousness, there's a part of our ego. And this is why I really believe that the mind ego, or the mind consciousness, is limited to heart consciousness. Heart consciousness is our divine feminine consciousness. This is in men and in women. The mind consciousness is the divine masculine consciousness. This is active in men and in women. So to be able to create an emotional coherence between our emotions, our intuition, our heart, and our mind, that's when we step into the slipstream of alignment. And so when these wounded aspects of ourselves get triggered and they get activated, and we feel, or I feel, my early adolescent self wanting to go, yeah, let's go like destroy something or be self-destructive or whatever it is, there's a wiser version of me that says, why don't you just sit down and draw a picture first? Why don't you just sit down and draw a page in your journal, write a page in your journal and see what's coming up, see what this is about, that's going to liberate you from acting as that wounded child that's going to go through and sabotage experiences, rather than support that shift in the awareness and the awakening of our own internal experience and our own internal process. So there's a lot for us to do. You know, this healing is infinite. It doesn't end. It doesn't
I
stop.
totally agree. So, so I want to help women who went through sexual abuse and trafficking and all that. And at the same time, I'm in my process as healing journey as well. I always said that healing is a lifelong journey.
It is. It is. And the thing with that also, like, I think a lot of people put healers on pedestals and project onto them this ideal, perfect, like, thing. And I have definitely put my foot in my mouth. I have definitely wounded people unintentionally because of my own wounding. And the thing is that I believe that that's partly how it's supposed to be, because when we pedestal healers and we put them on this thing that's like, you're supposed to heal me, that's not the case. Healers are here to reflect and mirror the parts of yourself that are unintegrated. And if that means that that healer actually pokes at that wound and you feel hurt, it's still part of the design of what we're all here to do and how we're here and designed and meant to help each other. And the thing is that when you pedestal a healer and they don't act in the perfection of how you think they're supposed to be acting, you actually learn to de-pedestal them, which may create a trauma response that makes you think you don't want to see healers. But the point of it is actually that it's supposed to empower you to put the power of your own healing in your own hands. So that's a little bit of my soapbox around the projections that we put onto healers, because I think it's really disempowering. To be a healer means that you were freaking wounded before the age of 10. Before the age of 10, you are blasted in some horribly painful experiences. And the way that we heal is by learning how to heal ourselves. And we have a bleeding heart because we know what it means to be stuck in our trauma and we want to help other people out of it. It does not mean that we are perfect, but it means that we have a large and giant heart. And I genuinely believe that we are actually, that there are people that are here that are born with gifts. And the way that they come through is by having these trauma experiences that teach us how paper thin this reality is.
Yes.
And this paper thin reality gets broken down thought by thought, moment by moment, when we start to see ourselves more clearly. And when we start to see the power of our divine potential. And when we start to see that within ourselves, we know how to hold greater and better space. And so even when healers are at the beginning of their journey, they will only be able to help the people that spirit brings to them because there's a match. There's a match in consciousness, there's a match in awareness, there's a match in capabilities that will allow both to take a baby step or even sometimes a quantum leap together when they're both ready. So it doesn't matter if a healer has sorted all of their stuff out. If they have the gift and know how to heal and want to help, go for it. Do it. Do it consciously and do it respectfully.
Yeah, like you have such a gifted way to channel the energy into words. Like it's amazing. Like I feel like I'm understood so much.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, honestly, like, yeah, I lived in the darkness such a long time and I just couldn't take it anymore. So yeah, so that's why I started my healing journey, and now this is my time to heal others. So thank you so much. Oh, so you said it so beautifully. Like,
oh, thank you, Yoshi. Appreciate it.
Okay, so the next question is, what is your biggest frustration and worries with regards to their trauma or emotional state?
My biggest worry.
Yeah, or frustration.
In regards to my emotional state or others?
With your traumas.
Yeah. I'm glad you're asking, because I think it's actually giving me an opportunity to face it. And this is one that's, I would say this is one that's active for me, is that I have a worry or a fear that the men that I am attracted to are going to embody the same type of trauma and toxic patterns. And so when I feel attracted to a man, I actually kind of step back. Now, I don't step forward. I step back and I'm like, what is this? There's something for me to heal, rather than this is like a divine source connection. I've learned that attraction itself is a very, very powerful thing and isn't always a sexual attraction. But I have, and I've learned that through a lot of trial and error, especially on Bali, that there were men specifically that I was attracted to that were actually just holding a link or a key for me to turn to heal a part of myself. And so when I was able to step into it consciously and know that there was a point of attraction that was bringing me into a higher state of awareness and a higher state of consciousness, for myself and for them, then I was able to shift and heal and integrate, like one more piece. But I think there's a part of me that's still afraid that if I get into a dynamic or into a relationship with a man, that some of these things will still be present and I'll have to go through that again, that I'll have to go through standing my ground and keeping my guard up or keeping myself safe or keeping myself protected. And to a certain degree, I also know that because of these experiences that I've had, it is important for me to be with a partner that is capable of holding the space that I personally will need to be held in case those triggers come up. And because they're sexual woundings, and because my intention with the partner is to have wonderfully unbelievable, unimaginable, multidimensional sexual experiences that knock all the other experiences out of this world sort of deal, that some of those traumas and some of those blocks and some of those triggers are going to be activated because they still resonate with me. And there's only so much that I can do by myself, that I'm still going to need to be aware that some of these horrible experiences and some of these horrible memories are actually embedded into the walls of my own divine portal and are only activated when those particular touch points are hit again. And so there is, I think there's a fear, but there's also an awareness. There's a fear inside of me that my wounding will attract a toxic partner because it has, and I've been blind to it. And there's also an awareness that it is important for me to respect myself at the absolute highest standard, to only know that it is safe for me to open myself to a man that holds divine safety and holds divine presence and may not have all the tools and the experience to heal me. I'm not looking for someone to heal me, but I'm looking for somebody that has a willingness to pause when we need to pause, and to breathe when we need to breathe, and to talk when we need to talk, so that this can unravel rather than re-traumatize. And also to be with a partner that trusts my maturity and my ability to move through it myself, and not expect them to do that for me, and not expect them to have all the answers for, like, that, to know that there's a mutual willingness to continue to integrate these wounds in a way that is very powerful, and hopefully will help encourage him to share that information with his brothers, and hopefully will encourage me to be able to share the experience with my sisters, to know that safe, compassionate, soulful love does exist, and that it isn't all trauma bonding, but it's our responsibility to heal those trauma points inside of ourselves, so that those trauma bonds aren't what actually is being magnetized and acted on in a way that is re-traumatizing, but that is actually reopening to allow more healing to occur.
Yeah, that's for sure. So the next question is, I know you've done, like, you know everything about the healing.
I don't know everything, I promise.
But I really want to ask this question. I know this question is a little bit redundant. What have you already done to address this issue, like traumas?
Yeah, I mean, I've done a lot. Breath work, medicine ceremonies, emotional freedom tapping, having the strength and courage to speak and to say, this is what's coming up for me, especially to people that are activating it in my world and in my life. I've had some brothers that have shown up in my world that have been really activating to some of the trauma even though we weren't sexually engaging. But like I said, there's an attraction and there's like that desire, but also knowing that the desire in and of itself is the trauma bond. So when I've been able to say, hey, this is coming up, I'm feeling sexually attracted, but there's also some other things that have come up. And so having the courage to have those conversations that are usually horribly uncomfortable has actually led to far more healing than, I would say, even the breath work. Tapping is really, 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 really helpful. So I want to also just put another, note in for that. It's the bottom line, like if I was to just say one thing, it's being willing to face it when it shows up. It's being willing to say, wow, this is here, and to share with the people that are around me that it's occurring with. Yeah. Being like, I'm triggered here. This was horrible here. I'm really hurt here. And it doesn't have to be everybody, because it doesn't have to be like a dramatic reenactment. But for me, it's been not allowing myself to suffer silently anymore. It's using my voice to share with the people that I feel safe to share it with, and even some that I don't feel safe to share it with, but that I know I need to share it with anyway, because it needs to come through. It needs to be healed. And so it's that. It's opening myself and opening my field to just being willing to participate with life as life happens.
Yeah. So just the one point, Sitara. So when you're attracted to this man who shared that, similar wound or same wound, what is the sign that you receive? Because I think we are all drawn to those men or, partner or whoever you are attracted to. We tend to share those backgrounds. How for you, how would you know that?
How did I know? It's because it was attraction.
All right.
It was an attraction. It was because I had a desire to sleep with that person. And when I expressed that desire and was met with I don't have the same desire, that's when I knew for me, it was a trauma. It was, okay, this is my trauma bringing you in. And because I'm having this conversation where I'm expressing a desire to go a little bit further and you're not, there's a couple things that have been revealed to me through these conversations. One is that I think there's a part of me that terrifies men, because I'm a strong, powerful, very vocal woman where I'm like, and some men don't like that, or they don't feel ready to stand up for it, or they don't feel mature enough to go into it with the life experiences that I've had, not just with my trauma, but with my successes. Right. And with the things that I have shown up in the world and the achievements that I've made and the things that I have been able to birth into creation that can be quite intimidating. So part of it was that. And then the other part was that I felt that and I call them brothers to me, because through the depth of honest conversation, I was able to form very strong relationships with them that have been very beautiful. And so it was like knowing that when the attraction is one way, I believe that person has a code for us that helps us to integrate another piece or another part of ourselves. And so when we get past the idea of believing, like, let's say that person is meant to be the father of our children, or meant to be like these crazy, this is what I will say is this is what crazy is when we create these stories in our mind that aren't necessarily what is meant to be. I don't believe that channeling angels or speaking to beings is crazy. I think what is crazy is when we get lost in our own belief cycles and don't allow ourselves to get out of it, even if it's societal programming or personally created stuff inside. So when I have this attraction, I voice it to somebody and they're like, yeah, cool, but not me. And I say, okay, are you willing to have a few more conversations over the next few weeks as this unfolds? Because it feels very active for me. And because I believe that there's an element of soulmate, of kinshipness in these people that we're attracted to for this reason. is that there has to be a container of love that is already there for the unraveling and the healing to occur. And I don't believe that we feel this kinshipness, this natural kinshipness with these people if they're not also willing. But it's a matter of how we go about having that conversation that opens up the potential for healing to occur anyway. And so that's what I find to be very helpful. And that's what I find to be, that's what I mean by like facing it when it comes up. It's okay, well, this is here. Well, I have to face rejection. Okay, I can deal with the rejection. The rejection stings a little bit. That's its own set of trauma. Okay, this person isn't into me, but I'm very into them. So that means that there's a part of me that's trauma bonding onto them. Okay, are they then willing to hold space for me as I talk my way through this? 100% of the time I've gotten a yes, that they are. Sometimes they don't want to have to hear the experiences that I've lived through. This is the thing, is like, we bring up these things and people are like, I don't want to talk about it. And I'm like, I had to live through it. I had to experience it. I had to be pinned down. I had to be unconsensually held against my will. And you don't want to hear it. Ouch. You know, that's why when I talk about connecting with the sisters, it's like some of these things have to happen with sisters that know what that pain feels like. To be coerced, to be non-consensually coerced, to be drugged, to be pulled into situations that weren't good for us, to be pulled into these things. Like, these experiences that have been lived through need room to breathe. They need room to be let out. They need room to be heard. They need room to be acknowledged. They need room to be seen and loved and nurtured. They need room to be acknowledged. They need room to be held in gratitude and respect and reverence for the teachings that they are there to teach us. And if we have called in a man into our life that isn't willing to sit with us, men are not responsible to heal us. Not a single man is responsible to heal us. And if there's a man that comes into your life and tells you, I can heal you, they are a predator. Please know this. They are a predator. They are not somebody that is there in your highest interest. You are responsible for healing yourself as a person that has experienced the trauma. There are people that will come into your life as allies that will help you move through it, and spirit will divinely align you to the right person at the right time when you're ready to open that box. And it will be messy and you will offend people. And I hope you don't hurt people, but you probably will hurt people because you yourself are hurting. In every moment, pause and ask your grandmother version of yourself to hold your hand, because the grandmother future version of yourself is your higher self, is your guide, and has already completely reconciled every feeling and every emotion that has come up. So she will be there with you every single step of the way when it gets hard. But lean on her, because she is with you infinitely. She is with you always. And we cannot expect the people in our lives that don't understand this pain to understand this pain. They won't. They just won't.
Wow, that was so powerful, Sarah. And also thank you very much for answering my personal question about guys.
You're welcome.
That was my personal question.
You're welcome. I love questions. I've been a professional psychic now for over 10 years. My entire life and business is built on questions. People want to come and ask me questions, and I love it because I love talking and I love answering questions, and I love feeling like I can help people solve their problems. I get so much joy out of it.
Yeah, you're amazing at it.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
And as you know, I feel like you're asking the questions when people are like, oh, you're amazing. It's been no small feat. I am aware I am amazing because I know of every single freaking step I have taken to embody amazingness. This is not coming from an egoic pedestal. This is like, I earned it.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
we all can too, right?
for sure.
Amazingness is not just, available to a select few. Like we get to choose how we show up in the world, and we get to choose if we want to be amazing or if we don't.
Yeah.
Some days I don't want to be amazing, but today I'm feeling like I want to be amazing.
Yeah. We show up every time, right? So.
Yeah.
Oh, and this is going to be the last question. What was missing from the solution? So I guess the healing that you tried and invested in. What was missing?
Honestly, the first thing that comes to mind is just time and patience. It's like the version of me that I am now would not have been able to have this conversation 2 years ago. The version of me that I am now wouldn't have been able to have this no matter what kind of advanced healing practitioner or, money invested or EFT video I watched or whatever. I don't think that we can expect these types of wounds that are deeply integrated to our subconscious and everyday actions and activities. I don't think that I feel that if we expect them to be reconciled like that, we're doing ourselves a disservice. And if we're able to lean in and honor ourselves more clearly with the patience that our healing deserves and the spaciousness that our healing deserves, because the thing is that you're not going to heal when you're forced, if force is what created the problem. You're going to heal when you have space. And so the more space and the more patience we can actually give ourselves, I actually think it speeds up the process. It's kind of one of those like weird sort of conundrums. It's like, it's exactly what it needs, but also sometimes exactly what we don't want to give it because we want to be relieved of the pain as soon as possible, which is why quick fixes like drinking and other sexual practices and other, like deep wounds require deep patience, and they also require deep internal parenting. We have to parent ourselves. We have to have someone inside of us that eventually says, no, this activity is not serving. This activity lacks self-respect. This choice that you're making, this partner that you're sleeping with, this experience that you're having is not serving. And at some point we have to reparent ourselves. And at some point we either have to ground ourselves or just simply say, no, this no longer is allowed in our life. This no longer is going to be what pulls you into a powerful movement within yourself. Like we have to be able to just take a breath and find the spaciousness that allows us to see ourselves clearly through every step. And so I don't necessarily think that anything was missing, because even some of the practitioners that I did work with, they didn't have the capacity in the same way I didn't have the capacity at that time to fully reconcile what was going on inside of me. We only attract people that meet us as deeply as they've met themselves and can see us as deeply as deeply as they have met themselves and as deeply as we have met ourselves. So if I've only been able to meet myself so deep, and that practitioner has only been able to meet themselves so deep, but there's room for both of us to go deeper through our interaction, I can't expect for that to be like completely resolved in one session or in a 3-month series. Especially if what we're talking about was part of a karmic agreement that was taking place before the moment of incarnation, which chances of it being karmic or happening through past life experiences, it's going to take some unraveling, right? If we from past lives are holding the frequency or the currency that's like, okay, now we have to unravel that in this lifetime, we can't expect it to happen in one 3-month package or one 90-minute session. And so the patience and the resolve to know that I'm maturing at exactly the right rate, at exactly the right time to help who I'm meant to help with and to just feel better in my own skin, I think is the greatest gift that I can give myself, of taking the expectation off of anybody else. It's not anybody else's job. Even if I've hired them, it still ultimately is my job.
Yeah, I found all the healings are self-healing. It doesn't matter. It's
Yeah.
Reiki, NLP, hypnosis. Yeah, EFT, definitely. I think so too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So that was all the questions that I want to ask you. Thank you so much, Sarah.
Yes, you are so very welcome. So very welcome. And I do want to just share that the Golden Womb activation is going to be available starting March 30th. Definitely check the link comments description below as well to connect with Yoshi. I want to keep this closeout super short and simple. So if you feel called to reach out, please get in contact with either one of us in the way that serves you best. But like I said, if you're interested in connecting with the Golden Womb activation, even if you're watching this video next year from when it was recorded, that course is going to be available for as long as it's available. As long as we have the technology and the resources to activate recording or to access recordings, it's there. So with that, Yoshi, I want to say thank you so much. It's almost midnight here where I am.
Okay.
So yeah, getting a little bit tired, but I'm so, it's the Dubai life. Nobody sleeps here. And it's so hot during the day that the day doesn't even start until like 3 or 4. So
Oh,
normal to be up this late. Totally switched around my life, my sleep
yeah,
schedule.
completely different from Toronto in Canada.
Yes, yes.
Wool sweater.
Yoshi, thank you for initiating this conversation. And I look forward to continuing to see how your path unfolds for you. And of course, if there's anything you need, feel free to reach out. And with that, we'll go ahead and close with our closing prayer. As we go forth, may we integrate any healing and lessons received with courage, self-love, and compassion. Our session here is very much complete. And Yoshi, thank you for all of your attention today. I look forward to seeing you again soon, and I hope you have an absolutely blessed day.
Thank you